I wasn't supposed to be home that night. The flight landed early, too early, really. I was supposed to be stuck in Chicago overnight, some delay with the connecting flight, but the airline shifted things around, and just like that, I had a seat on a 5:45 p.m. arrival back in Greenhaven. No checked luggage, no traffic on the highway. For once, everything lined up. I sat in the rental car in the airport garage, my hand hovering over my phone. I should have texted her. Should have let her know I was on my way home. But something stopped me. Not suspicion. Not even hesitation. Just a random, dumb idea. Maybe we could do something spontaneous. Dinner out. A bottle of wine. Something quiet and warm. God knows we needed it. We'd been off lately. Not fighting exactly, but disconnected. Like two people in the same room living different lives. But I didn't want to give up on us. I wasn't wired that way. I still believed, or tried to, that we could find our way back. So I didn't text her. The drive home was calm. The sky had that early spring haze, soft blue with streaks of fading orange. Trees along the road just starting to bloom. Familiar exits. Familiar radio station. I remember glancing at the passenger seat and imagining her there, laughing at one of her podcasts, feet tucked up like she always did on long drives. I remember thinking, tonight's going to be good. I pulled into the driveway just after 6:30. Lights were on in the living room. Her car was parked the same way it always was, a little crooked. One of our neighbors, Bill, was out walking his dog and gave me a polite wave. I waved back, casually, like nothing in the world was wrong. I still had my jacket on when I opened the door. The warmth of the house hit me first, followed by the faint smell of dinner. Something creamy, maybe pasta. There was music playing low, some acoustic playlist she always liked when she was in a good mood. Everything looked normal. I should have called out her name, but I didn't. Something stopped me. I took a few steps in, quietly closing the door behind me. The house was mostly dark except for the soft glow spilling out from the kitchen. I could hear her voice coming from there, cheerful, animated. And then I heard a second voice, distorted slightly by speakerphone lag. Her sister. I knew that voice. I knew the cadence of their giggles. They talked often, sometimes too often. I stood at the base of the staircase, half in shadow, still clutching my duffel bag. I swear, she said, laughing. He's so predictable. I froze. I don't even have to try anymore, she continued. I just tear up a little, act like I'm hurt, and boom, he's apologizing. Like, every time. Her sister said something, but it was muffled. Then came more laughter, louder this time. No, seriously, my wife went on. He always forgives. Every time. It's actually kind of convenient. Like, I don't know, having a get-out-of-jail-free card in human form. My stomach dropped. And not in the way people exaggerate when they talk about getting bad news. I mean, I actually felt my stomach lurch, like something had been pulled out from under me. I couldn't breathe for a second. She kept talking and I kept listening, frozen there like some intruder in my own home. I don't even feel bad anymore, she said. Like, what's the point? He'll forgive me anyway. He always does. And then came the sentence, the one that changed everything. He's not my husband. He's my safety net. I swear I stopped breathing right then and there. I had to brace myself against the wall, the banister digging into my palm. It wasn't just what she said. It was the tone. Cold. Triumphant. She wasn't venting. She wasn't angry. She was proud. I don't remember how long I stood there. Long enough to hear her change the subject. Long enough to realize she had no idea I was home. I stepped backward, careful not to make a sound. No confrontation. No scene. I didn't call her name. Didn't ask what she meant. I didn't even look at her. I just walked back out the door, into the cool evening air, my mind silent in a way that terrified me. I drove for hours. I didn't even know where I was going. I passed the park we used to walk in on Sundays. Past the gym she never used but always said she would. I parked in front of a closed-down bookstore we'd visited on our first date and stared at the darkened windows, trying to remember what that night had felt like. Eventually, I found myself in front of a roadside motel about 20 minutes out of town. It was one of those places where the vacancy light always flickered and the curtains never closed all the way. I paid in cash, didn't give my name, sat on the edge of the stiff bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. And then I opened my laptop. Not for work. Not to write out my feelings. That part of me was gone. Dead. She'd led it with one sentence. No, I started making a list. Plan. Everything I needed to do to untangle myself from the woman I thought I married. Step by step. Clean. Cold. Invisible. She had turned our marriage into a strategy game. I was done being the pawn. She didn't know I was gone that night. Didn't call. Didn't text. If she noticed I wasn't in the house, she probably assumed I was out for a late work dinner or grabbing drinks with colleagues. Just another absent husband whose world revolved around his job. The kind of man who never noticed the lipstick stains that weren't his, the phantom perfume in the passenger seat, the mysterious credit card charges she couldn't quite explain. But I noticed. I always noticed. I just never acted. Until now. By the time the sun came up, I had already retained an attorney. I found her through a friend, someone discreet, sharp, known for handling delicate matters with brutal efficiency. I didn't even meet her in person at first. Just a calm voice on the phone walking me through the initial steps like she'd done it 100 times before. She had. Her tone was matter-of-fact, surgical. She didn't ask why. She just asked what I had. Do you have proof? She said. Not yet, I replied. Get it. That same morning, I ordered a small wireless camera from an electronic site she'd never heard of. It would arrive in 2 days. I paid extra for overnight shipping. Not because I was impatient, because I was done living in the dark. I opened a new bank account under my name only. Different bank, different login, no shared statements. I started with a modest transfer. Just enough to go unnoticed, but significant enough to matter later. I reviewed every joint account, every auto payment, every little pipeline she could use to siphon money when the walls started closing in. I knew how she thought now. I understood her better in that one hallway moment than I had in 10 years of marriage. At work, I smiled through meetings, nodded at jokes, shook hands with clients. No one knew. No one saw the storm unraveling behind my eyes. I was deliberate with my calendar. I left my phone unlocked at home. I left a trail of normalcy. At home, I was the perfect husband. I kissed her goodnight. I brought home takeout. I asked about her sister's baby shower plans and acted genuinely curious about her new obsession with Pilates. I poured her a glass of wine when she got home late. I massaged her shoulders when she complained about stress. She never suspected a thing. That's what got me the most. How easy it was to pretend. How she mistook my silence for softness. My detachment for fatigue. She thought she had broken me. She thought I was too tired, too worn down, too in love to fight back. What she didn't know was that I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned itself out that first night in the motel room. What came after wasn't rage, it was clarity. Every night, after she fell asleep, I stayed up for hours cataloging everything. Bank statements, location data, saved messages, calendar inconsistencies. I started with the things that didn't make sense. The conference that didn't exist, the Uber receipts that led to hotel bars, the emails with subject lines like, follow up, and good seeing you again. Then I moved on to her phone. She was careless more than I expected. She never changed her passcode. Same 4 digits she used for everything. Maybe she thought I'd never look. Maybe she thought I was still that version of me. The man who brought her flowers on random Tuesdays just to make her smile. The texts were there. Flirtatious at first, then explicit. Not just with one man, 2, maybe 3. Hard to say. She was smart enough to delete threads, but not smart enough to clear cloud backups. I sat there some nights, just staring at the words. My name never came up. Not even once. She didn't even lie about me. She erased me, like I was just some peripheral figure financing her lifestyle. That hurt more than the cheating. I recorded every careless moment. Her murmuring on the phone in the bathroom. Her 2 frequent visits to Megan's place that lasted 6 hours with no photos or posts to prove she'd been there. I saved screensh *ts, created a drive, labeled every file. My lawyer said it was overk *ll. I told her I wanted airtight. No room for manipulation. No room for charm. And still I smiled at home. She made plans. Girls' weekends. Shopping trips. Spa packages. All on the joint card. All approved by the man she thought was still asleep at the wheel. I watched her live like a queen, completely unaware that the crown she wore was already melting. The thing about betrayal is this. Once you stop bleeding from it, you start noticing how sharp your own edges can become. I stopped asking questions. Stopped trying to understand. My role had shifted. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was the architect of my own escape. I rehearsed the moment in my head dozens of times. What I'd say, what I wouldn't, whether I'd yell, or simply let the silence do the work. Whether I'd show her the photos or just leave them out for her to find. Whether I'd wait for her to beg or walk away before she could even speak. The truth? None of it mattered anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her tears. I just needed to be free. But before that, I needed the final piece. The one moment that would cement everything, not just for me, but for everyone else in her orbit. Her sister, her friends, her so-called tribe that always smiled at me like they were in on a joke I didn't get. I wanted them to see. I wanted her to see them seeing. So I waited, not like a coward, like a strategist. She mentioned wanting to host a dinner. Some celebration, new job opportunity or something. Said she wanted her sister and a few girlfriends to come by. I agreed instantly. Said it sounded lovely. That maybe I'd even open that expensive bottle of champagne she kept saving for a special occasion. She beamed. I smiled back. She had no idea the occasion wasn't hers. It was mine. The day of the dinner came, and I played the part so well I almost believed it myself. I went to work like usual, answered emails, nodded along during meetings, but my mind wasn't in the office. It was at home, walking through every detail of what was about to unfold. I knew where the envelope was. I'd sealed it that morning, tucked it into the drawer of my desk like a quiet promise to myself. The divorce papers were inside, everything signed, every asset separated, every protection activated, every trapdoor shut. It was a masterpiece of preparation. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was closing a theater production where I had been cast in the role of a fool. And tonight the curtain would fall. When I got home, the house smelled like candles and garlic. She was in the kitchen humming to herself, barefoot, wearing that black dress with the open back. The one she wore when she wanted attention. I used to think it was for me. Now I wasn't so sure. Her voice floated over the kitchen island, light and carefree. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, called me babe like everything was normal. Maybe for her it was, "Glad you're back early," she said, sliding a pot off the burner. "Can you chill the champagne?" "Already in the fridge," I said, and smiled. The guests started to arrive around 7. Her sister, a few of her friends I only ever saw in filtered photos and heard about through secondhand drama. They brought gifts, wine, the usual empty chatter. Everyone settled in around the table, laughing about work, about traffic, about whatever viral nonsense they were pretending to care about that week. I sat at the head of the table, half listening, smiling, the same way I had for years, present, but never really seen. She was in her element, pouring drinks, making little jokes at my expense. Nothing cruel, just the soft kind of disrespect that passes for humor when people think you're too dull to mind. Everyone laughed when she did it. I smiled too. I always had. That was part of my role. Laugh, shrug, refill the wine. And then she started talking about the trip. "We've been thinking Italy," she said, gesturing to her sister and one of the others. "Somewhere scenic. Amalfi, maybe. Somewhere we can unwind. We deserve it, right?" They all agreed, tipsy and delighted. "And this one," she said, nodding toward me. "Well, he's practically sponsoring the whole thing. Aren't you, babe?" The words hit like a slap, even though I saw them coming. The audacity, the performative tone, the way she *p*nized affection for applause. I caught her sister's glance, hesitant, almost apologetic. One of the friends looked at her wine like she suddenly didn't want it anymore. I reached beneath the table, opened the drawer of the sideboard, and pulled out the envelope. She was still laughing when I placed it in front of her. At first, she didn't register what it was. She just looked at it, then up at me, confused. "What's this?" she asked, still smiling. "Open it." I kept my voice even, flat. I wasn't angry. I was done being angry. She slid her finger under the flap and pulled out the papers. I watched her eyes scan the top page, and I knew the exact moment it clicked. Her expression changed, not dramatically, not like in the movies. No gasps, no screams. Just the slow draining of color from her face as she realized what was in her hands. She looked up at me, blinking. What is this?" "A divorce agreement," I said. "Signed. Final. Irrevocable." The silence around the table was sudden and heavy. You could hear the slow tick of the kitchen clock. No one moved. No one reached for their glass. Even the background music felt too loud now. She laughed, but it was hollow. "You're joking, right?" I didn't blink. "No." She glanced around the table, as if someone might step in. As if this was some kind of prank we were all playing on her. But no one moved. Her sister looked away. One of her friends slowly pulled her phone from the table like she suddenly remembered she had somewhere to be. Her voice cracked. "You're doing this now? In front of everyone. You're the one who brought the audience," I said. I stood, straightened my jacket, and looked around the table. "Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the wine. The house is still hers for the week." And with that, I walked out. No dramatics. No parting insults. Just quiet steps down the hall, keys in my hand, and the door clicking shut behind me. I didn't look back. I drove for a while. Nowhere in particular. Through neighborhoods I didn't recognize, past people living lives untouched by the kind of betrayal I had lived with. I ended up parked outside an old diner. The kind of place where nothing ever changes. Where the coffee tastes like burnt comfort and no one asks you why your eyes look like they haven't slept in weeks. I sat there, fingers gripping the steering wheel, and I felt it, the first breath of real freedom. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't fought. I hadn't even cried. I had just ended it. And that silence, the absence of her voice, her excuses, her games, was the most peaceful sound I'd heard in years. That night she called. I didn't answer. She called again, then texted, then sent a message that just said, "Please." I turned the phone over and left it screen down on the table. No more replies, no more forgiveness. Not this time, because for the first time in years, I had nothing left to give her. Not attention, not energy, not another inch of myself. She had taken it all. And now, she could have the silence she never thought I was capable of. She didn't give up easily. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Some were long and pleading, full of apologies and explanations she thought I wanted. Others were just single lines. "Talk to me, please call, I miss you." At one point, she left a voicemail. Her voice cracked and raw, saying she didn't recognize herself anymore, that she didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't respond. I didn't block her either. I wanted her to see I was reading every message and choosing silence. That was the part that seemed to drive her the most insane. Not being yelled at, not being insulted, just being ignored. Meanwhile, I had moved into a small apartment 2 states away. A friend hooked me up with a quiet unit in a minimalist complex near the water. Nothing fancy. Just clean lines, white walls, empty corners, and no traces of a life built with someone else. It was perfect. I bought a bed, a desk, and 1 chair. I didn't decorate. I didn't need anything that reminded me of what used to be. I didn't want warmth. I wanted clarity. And in that silence, I started to breathe again. I went back to the gym for the first time in years. Not out of some desperate need to reinvent myself, but because I needed something to push against, something real. I started lifting, running, letting the physical pain drown out the emotional weight I still hadn't quite shaken. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't talked to in ages because my marriage had quietly demanded isolation. They welcomed me back without asking too many questions. Just beers, football, and laughter that didn't feel forced. Some nights I'd catch myself wondering how I stayed as long as I did. How many little betrayals I had overlooked. How many things I'd brushed off as stress or bad timing or just part of marriage. I think deep down I knew the truth for a long time. But when you build your life around someone, admitting it's crumbling feels like stepping off a cliff. You'd rather patch the cracks than start over. It's easier to believe in the illusion than to admit you were the only one still trying. But eventually, even illusions become too heavy to carry. And then one night, out of nowhere, she showed up. I was at a quiet coffee shop not far from my new place. A small spot with dark wood floors and jazz on the speakers. I was reading something completely unrelated to her. For once, when I looked up and saw her standing by the counter, for a second I thought I was imagining it. But then she turned, and there she was. Jessica. She looked smaller. Not physically, but diminished. The makeup was subtle, the clothes plain, the confidence gone. She walked over slowly, hesitant, like she didn't know what version of me she was about to face. "Hey," she said. I didn't stand, just nodded. "Can I sit?" I shrugged. She took the seat across from me, folding her hands in her lap. Her eyes searched mine like she was still trying to find the man who used to fall over himself to comfort her. "I didn't come to make excuses," she said. "I know I don't have that right anymore." I waited. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For what I did. And for what I took from you." Her voice trembled, and I realized I didn't feel what I thought I would. No rage. No desire to hurt her. Just distance. Like she was a character in a story I used to know. She kept going. "I thought I needed more. I thought I deserved more. But I didn't understand what I already had. And now I do. And I just—" She paused, her breath catching. "I just hope, one day, you can forgive me." I looked at her for a long time. The woman I had once imagined raising kids with, growing old with. The woman who had shared my bed while planning her exits. She looked so out of place in that chair. Like someone trying to return to a house that had already burned down. I picked up my cup, took a sip and said, "I already did." She blinked. "You did?" "Yeah," I said. "A long time ago. But that doesn't mean I want you back." Her face crumpled. She nodded slowly, like she knew that was coming but still hoped to be wrong. "I get it," she whispered. "I really do." She stood. For a second, she looked like she wanted to reach out, touch my arm, maybe say my name one more time, but she didn't. She just turned and walked out of the cafe. I didn't watch her leave. After that, she sent one last message. It was short. "Thank you for listening. I hope you find what you're looking for." I didn't respond. There was nothing else to say. The truth is, I wasn't looking for anything anymore. I didn't need to heal. I already had. Not in some dramatic, overnight transformation, but in small, ordinary ways. Waking up to silence and not feeling dread. Cooking for one and feeling fine. Laughing at something stupid on TV without feeling like I had to share it with someone to make it real. That's what no one tells you about freedom. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself with a bang. It just shows up one day like a clean floor and a quiet morning and the sound of your own breath. Steady and unburdened. She built her throne on convenience and thought I'd never leave the kingdom. But I did. And there's no reverse gear in freedom. She may have walked away from a marriage. But I walked toward myself. And I'm not turning back.